I know Draymond, and that's not, he hasn't been that way when I was around him and coming into the league. So hopefully he gets the help he needs and get back on the court and, put all this stuff behind him.
When we look at the NBA currently, a lot of what's actually happening, a lot of the conversations we have are directly correlated to the past, and I mean the near past. And I'm talking about choke jobs, career-defining decisions, career-defining championship rings, stuff like that. Your history/legacy in the NBA, it follows you like a shadow, and that could be a good thing or a bad thing until you change it. This summer, we're going to have pretty major free agents hit the market, which will dictate the future of a lot of their current teams. Paul George, LeBron has been a big name, obviously, with Bronny Lumen. James Harden is very interesting now. Klay Thompson, pretty big names that's a little bit past their prime. 5 years ago, in 2019, some of these same major names were either directly involved or directly affected by the movement of the NBA at that specific time. Recently, we've been hearing a lot about Draymond Green. When don't we hear about Draymond? To me, despite all the outside noise, he's been playing some of the best basketball I've seen him play in a while. Recently, they've been allowing him to play center, completely embracing that small ball lineup. That's nothing new to Golden State. And since he's been incorporated into the starting lineup, Golden State is 8-3 in that span. They're scoring the second most points. They're leading the NBA in assists, and they're top 4 defensively. Say what you want about that man, and it's a lot that could be said. Draymond is still a vital piece to that puzzle. 5 years ago, he pretty much destroyed a dynasty that looked damn near unbeatable. And to his credit, a lot of what he said specifically about Kevin Durant and his significance to that team is proven to be valid. Today's video is sponsored by Manscaped. Today I want to talk to you guys about probably my favorite product that Manscaped actually has, the Handyman. Now you guys know I'm all about finding the best products that make our grooming routines easy, efficient, and effective. And this all-in-one shaver does exactly just that. Now this Handyman delivers a quick close shave with a unique dual blade system, and it features a standard foil shaver as well as a long hair leveler blade to knock down like 3 days worth of growth. Also, like a lot of their products, it's very convenient. It features skin-safe technology to reduce nicks and cuts, and it's waterproof as you can see, so you can use it in the shower. And lastly, it just looks so slick and beautiful in your hand, and it lasts. It features up to 60 minutes of runtime per charge. If you want to try the Handyman out and you want 20% off of your first order plus free international shipping, click the link in my description box below or use my promo code SWISH at checkout. That's 20% off of your first order plus free international shipping only at manscaped.com.
It's like you got to sell what you're doing as well. And I haven't sold it enough, and I feel like I don't feel like I need to. I don't feel like I want people to call me a leader, but I also don't want people to say I'm not one either. And they don't see what goes on behind the scenes or what I talk about or my intentions. When guys like that say that, I just got to chalk it up to them just not being aware.
To kind of to your point, Nick, KD says, I don't want to have to be the leader. No. I'm not a leader.
There you go.
I'm bad at saying stand behind me and follow me. No, I'm one of those guys that's just like, let's do this blank
that
together.
That was 7 years ago.
I found this first things first segment very interesting because honestly, I forgot Kevin Durant even said that. This isn't really anything new, but recently Kevin Durant has been called out or gotten a little bit of heat for not being a quote unquote leader. And obviously with Golden State, that was literally never required. With Golden State, KD really only had one job. Bro, just go hoop. He never really had to be a captain on the team or a spokesman or anything like that. Steve Kerr, he gets the credit for implementing their offense within how they play. Draymond, he orchestrates their offense and anchors their defense, and he's the voice / heart and soul of their entire team. Steph and Klay, but obviously mainly Steph, he's the main ingredient to their offense. Kevin Durant, to me, has proven to be a luxury for that dynasty, and unfortunately, with how successful they've been pre-KD and post-KD, his rings, they look a little weird. Now, not to take away anything from KD's success there, because I still cringe when any Golden State fan makes fun of this man in any way. With how LeBron was playing back then, KD's services were definitely utilized. But since leaving Golden State, Kevin Durant has found himself on circus-like teams that make people question his leadership, fair or not. In Brooklyn, where he chose to play, every star on that team became a bit drama-filled next to Kevin Durant. Kyrie Irving, I mean, we all know about him going away from the team unannounced, the vaccination status, the unprofessional moments. It was a lot with Kyrie. James Harden requested a trade 1 year into his tenure with Kevin Durant, and for the first time of his career, he had never been hurt in the playoffs up until the time he played with KD. He got hurt when it counted most. Ben Simmons, I mean, I don't even really remember too many moments they had together, and the whole Brooklyn thing was just a complete mess. And now with Phoenix, yes, they've been a lot better as of late as they've gotten healthy, but it always feels like since him leaving Golden State, outside of Kevin Durant himself, everything else is some question mark. How healthy will they be? Have they played enough games together to establish that rapport? Who's the real leader? And unfortunately, even through his dominant play, Kevin Durant is always great on the court. It's affected his legacy. While KD's been in the East, these are all the stars that's been to the conference finals on his watch. Not even saying it's all his fault, but it's happened while he's been there. In the West, this is how it looks. And obviously he wasn't in the West long since leaving Golden State, but he was favored against Denver. Draymond, Steph, Clay, and Golden State in 2 years in the playoffs. They have 9 more playoff wins than KD in his 3 years. So again, not blaming KD specifically, but his legacy, quote unquote, it takes a hit every time he proves he can't win outside the Bay. And Draymond will always have that over him until he fixes it. 5 years ago, Russell Westbrook played his last year in OKC, and that summer, he finally left. Now, while Draymond and Golden State's, their legacy continues to build the more KD falls short without him, KD's decision in 2016, it looks more valid the more Russ falls short without him. To me, Russ leaving OKC, it gave him multiple chances to prove that his play style could actually contribute to a winning culture or a winning environment. And Russ is such in a good place right now, and he's found such a good role that I don't even want to talk negatively about him. But as a main piece, a lot of his flaws did become glaring. With Houston, Mike D'Antoni kind of built their entire offense around him, completely committed to the small ball. And in the postseason where it matters most, in their last 4 losses, which came consecutively, Russ had by far the worst plus minus on the team. His assist to turnover ratio was terrible and he wasn't efficient. All that to me is advantage Kevin Durant. Then with the Lakers, we don't even have to get into that. And now he's found a new life and a new role with the Clippers, but it's proven to me that his best chance at winning a championship is in a more reduced role where his bag can be tamed to some extent. Paul George 5 years ago was coming off of the best season of his entire career with Russ. Had just signed a contract with OKC that summer when everybody thought he was leaving. And since he did leave after that season and forced that trade to the Clippers, he's really put nothing but pressure on himself that will never end until he wins the championship. Even with all those stars on that Clippers team, the only player with absolutely nothing left to prove is Kawhi. So even when they blow a 3-1 lead to Denver, or even when they come close to losing to Luka Doncic and the Mavericks, the player that's going to get clowned the most is Playoff P. He's the one that has that name really without the resume in the last decade to back it up. He's the one that got traded solely for this insane package in retrospect. So when/if the Clippers fail, yeah, it's bad on Kawhi because technically he did leave a championship team for this. But Kawhi is one of arguably 2 of the 3 greatest players ever to have a championship finals MVP on 2 different teams. That, regardless of what happens, is always going to hold weight. And I know Kevin Durant didn't play, but you could say he ended 2 dynasties. So anything he did with the Clippers to me was always a luxury. Meanwhile, Paul George with the Clippers, the success, he needs that. So the pressure will always remain on him. And to this day, it stays that way until he wins. What about the player that basically ended the OKC Russ PG duo, Damian Lillard? I saw him and Chris Haynes laughing about that famous shot he hit against OKC during the All-Star game practice. And if we're being honest, that shot he made 5 years ago and that run they made 5 years ago, that should have been his last time ever putting on a Portland uniform. And that's just the truth. If you really look at it, after that specific season, everything went down for that team. That team that year was by far the best team Dame has ever had in Portland. That team was ranked 3rd offensively, only behind Houston and Golden State. And we know how crazy those offenses were back then. They won 53 games and they made a conference finals. In the conference finals against Golden State, Portland blew 3 straight 17-point plus leads and got swept by a KD-less Golden State. That should have been the end of that little run right there. It should have been blown up right there. After that season, and I get Dame battled injuries, but Portland, they had one of the worst winning percentages for the remainder of Dame's span, and out of every superstar, or at least player that averaged 25 points plus in the playoffs, Dame and a very young Anthony Edwards, they've lost the most. Now, Dame, he's going to be 34 in July, and yes, he's with Giannis in a very weird, crazy, kind of chaotic situation in Milwaukee. Doc Rivers, it's a lot going on, and I question how open is that championship window really, and did he wait too long? LeBron and AD, they got together after that season 5 years ago, and say what you want about them now, that tenure has been very successful. In 2018, they both were in pretty tough spots. LeBron was playing with a bunch of kids, he got hurt, looked kind of old, and no one really wanted to play with him in LA. And AD, he was completely tired of New Orleans. They had just lost Boogie, they weren't winning, and he desperately wanted a chance to contend for a title. With these stats, these dominant stats, he was 5-8 in the postseason. I mean, it was time. Since joining the Lakers, and yes, they've had their ups and downs, they've made dumbass moves, they're the Lakers, so everything they do is put on a microscope. But out of every player that we consider to be stars, so I filtered it to 20 points per game in the playoffs, LeBron and AD, they have the 6th most wins in that span, and they have a championship and 2 conference finals appearances. Expectations for the Lakers, and mainly any team LeBron is on, is obviously high. But from where they were 5 years ago and to where they've been and where they are even right now, to me, it's been a major success. Also, 5 years ago, we had this team. And now, 5 years later, without Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward in the way, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown proved to be one of the more consistent, lethal duos in the game. Yes, I get it. They haven't quite gotten over that hump, and I mean that championship hump, and it has been ugly. Jaylen Brown has had bad moments, and so has Jason Tatum. But with 3 different head coaches, I'm gonna put this graphic back up. The duo with the most playoff wins in that span since losing Kyrie and Gordon Hayward is these two. And if you want to filter it to regular season, it's by far these two. Since 2019, if you take out that 1 year where I believe Jaylen Brown broke his hand or something like that in 2021, they've been to the conference finals at least every single year. 5 years ago, with so much going on, and Tatum being a 2nd-year player and Jaylen Brown being a 3rd-year player, and all those names, Tatum was averaging 15 points per game on career-low splits, and Jaylen Brown didn't even start. Sometimes addition by subtraction is real, and obviously it was in this case. And Philly 5 years ago, they had this team. This crazy team on paper was broken up by this man. Since then, let's look at the players. Last time putting up this graphic, but the player with the most wins in the playoffs, even without a ring, is Jimmy Butler. Currently, I don't care what seed he is, I don't care what his stats look like, I don't care what he has going on right now. That man is dangerous, and I will always respect that. Joel Embiid, since that season, yeah, he's been a lot more dominant, especially in the regular season. Actually, you can make a case since that year, he's had a case for the MVP every single year after that. But that year specifically, in 2019, it was the start of the choke job narrative built around Joel Embiid, and since then, it's only gotten worse. That elimination game where Joel Embiid basically became a meme, he was 6 for 18 with 4 turnovers in that game. That was a chance to make his first conference finals. 2 years later, as the 1st seed, I get it, we all blame Ben Simmons for the infamous Trae Young play and the free throws, etc. But Joel Embiid totaled 16 turnovers in games 6 and 7, 8 turnovers apiece in both games. That's terrible. Blown conference finals chance right there. Then the following year against Miami, he went 7 for 24 in game 6. Then last year, he picked game 7 to have the worst game of the entire season after winning the MVP. 5 years ago is where it actually began, and since then, it really hasn't ended. And for Ben Simmons, that summer, he got that massive contract, and since then, he really hasn't even been a full-time NBA player. That's the nicest way I can put it with Ben Simmons. And the NBA champions 5 years ago, the Toronto Raptors, they were the first team to win the NBA Finals and have their Finals MVP play for another team directly after winning. And now, 5 years later, they finally completely unloaded that championship roster, trading Pascal Siakam and officially embracing a much-needed rebuild. If you guys like this video, I made a video about the free agency that summer, like in 2022, but I wanted to talk a little bit more about the specific players and how they played that year and kind of where they are right now, because to me, it's all kind of correlated. If you guys like this video, make sure you like the video, comment, like, subscribe, follow my social media sites, do all that great stuff, guys. And until next time, as always, stay tuned.